I'm Spartacus. It's rigorous. Were there female gladiators? It's relentless. Why did the Romans have gladiators? Bread and circuses. Hi, my name is Dr. Simon Elliott. I'm an archaeologist, historian and broadcaster, and today I'm going to be answering Google's most popular questions about gladiators. So let's begin. Were gladiators real? Well, based on the tens of thousands who would have lost their life in the arena of the Colosseum, the answer is absolutely yes, gladiators were real. Did gladiators fight animals every time there are the games in the Roman Empire? First, the beast hunts, then over lunch, the public execution, and then in the afternoon, gladiatorial combat. This is a set-piece event, always the same. Now, the first thing that happens in the arena during the day, the beast hunts, there you would have specialist gladiators and specialist beast hunters fighting the animals, and gladiators could take part in the beast hunts at the beginning of the day's entertainment, but more often than not they didn't because they were so expensive. Then if you go to the last event of the day, the gladiatorial combats, this is where gladiators are fighting gladiators, beasts could be introduced to add flavour to the gladiatorial combat later. Were gladiators fat? Interesting question. This represents popular culture where we see gladiators in Hollywood and on TV absolutely ripped. In the pre-modern world, gladiators didn't look like a modern bodybuilder.
Gladiators, they put up a great fight, some great defensive work, Saracen and Wolfman.
I mean, they spent most of their working life sort of getting fit and ready to fight each other in the intense heat of the Mediterranean in the arena. So I certainly don't think they were fat. Were gladiators Greek or Roman? Gladiators would have come from everywhere. The Roman Empire, it's a pan-Mediterranean empire, so they could have come from the Greek world and the Eastern Mediterranean, the Roman world and the Central Mediterranean, the former Carthaginian world and the Western Mediterranean, and a lot of gladiators were actually opponents of the Romans who became slaves. They could have been Gauls, they could have been Germans, they could have been Britons, they could have been Persians, they could have been North Africans. So not just the Mediterranean, but from the entire known Roman world. Next question. Were gladiators slaves? Well, in the Roman world, the levels of society were at the bottom slaves, then freed men who were former slaves who'd been freed or manumitted, and then free men who'd never been slaves, and then aristocrats above them. So slaves are at the bottom with no personal agency whatsoever, and gladiators were slaves. How did people become gladiators? Well, gladiators are usually selected from slaves by the owners of gladiator training schools.
It is an art, choosing gladiators. They're usually prisoners of war.
So they'd go throughout the Roman Empire looking at new Roman captives, and they'd select those they thought would be the best fighters in the arena, and then those slaves would become gladiators. Next question. Did people volunteer to become gladiators? Absolutely not. You're volunteering to put your life at risk, dying a horrendous death. Why would you want to do that? So nobody volunteered to become a gladiator. They were all slaves who were forced to fight for the public's entertainment. Did gladiators fight to the death? Gladiators did fight to the death, but it's also worth bearing in mind that actually gladiators, despite being slaves, are exceptionally highly trained. And often make vast amounts of money for their owners and the people sponsoring them or betting on them. gladiators, when they lost the combat, weren't killed in the combat.
Not all contests end in death. 2 fingers, a sign of surrender and shame.
Sometimes, though, they fought to the death. Were gladiator fights staged? Well, so in Roman public entertainment, you have the theatre, posh, the Odeon, a theatre with a roof, the circus or hippodrome, where you have chariot racing. Not particularly brutal, and then very, very, very brutal, the arena, the amphitheatre, and that's where gladiatorial combat took place, where people are effectively being killed for public entertainment. Gladiators were dressed theatrically to represent different kinds of fighter. You would have the Thracian, who was dressed as a warrior, would have been dressed. You have the Samnite, who would have been dressed as somebody from the Apennine Mountains fighting the Romans. Famously, you have the Rotarius. The Rotarius has got the trident and the net, representing the fishermen.
Net and trident. The man appears more common fisherman than gladiator.
Styles Corretiarius, carried from the outer regions.
They should carry it back.
These are all theatrical representations. One of the things you have in a Roman amphitheatre usually is a central stage which will go up and down into the undercroft. That stage will be dressed for whatever event's going to go on above in the arena once it's back up again. So if it's part of the beast hunts, it might be a jungle or something like that. If it's public executions, it might be grandiose theatrical ways of executing people, maybe representing sort of events from Roman mythology. If it's gladiatorial combat, it could be recreating something from, say, the Punic Wars or the wars against the Hellenistic states.
We reach back to hallowed antiquity to bring you a recreation of the second fall of mighty Carthage. On the barren plain of Zarma, there stood the invincible armies of the barbarian Hannibal.
Were the outcome of the fight staged, though, Roman society features this huge, huge difference between the super rich and everybody else. One of the ways you can get rich quick is through gambling. If gladiator fights were staged, that would actually go against that, so not that many were staged. Were gladiators vegetarian? This references a popular sort of idea that gladiators were fed on some kind of vegetable gruel. They certainly had a very, very high carb diet because they needed to be able to use energy all the time. The gladiatorial combats were the last thing that happens of the 3 key events in the arena. So the gladiators are going to actually have to wait around a lot. They're going to need a diet that's going to keep them ready and fit, etc. Certainly don't think they were vegetarian. Next question. How did gladiators train? Well, gladiators train like a normal Roman soldier, where they're trained for hand-to-hand combat. The training is hard, it's rigorous, it's relentless. Ultimately, because the gladiators at some stage are going to be fighting for their life. The Roman military, certainly throughout the first part of the Roman Empire, was largely a heavy infantry army where the troops are told to wield the gladius and the scutum shield and all their equipment in a certain way. There's a set training regime. Gladiators, even though they have a far greater diversity of equipment and military weaponry, are also taught to train in a very fixed, specific way. Next question. Were gladiators paid? Gladiators were slaves at the very bottom of Roman society. But in the Roman world, slaves could be paid, and certainly gladiators could earn money. One of the ways which a slave could be manumitted was to earn enough money to buy their freedom. Some of the richer, better off gladiators who'd been highly successful with sponsors, with mentors, with patricians looking after them, maybe they could have bought their freedom as well.
You won your freedom?
A long time ago, the Emperor presented me with a Meridius. It's just a wooden sword.
a symbol of your freedom.
Were gladiators celebrities? Gladiators and chariot racing drivers in the Hippodrome were the A-list sporting and entertainment celebrities of their day. So if you were to combine the world's most famous footballer
From Alexandro, and what about that? From Cristiano Ronaldo.
with the world's most famous racing driver,
He's a long way back. It'll be a big lunge from there. And he's going to try and make that lunge. And he does make that lunge down the inside. Lewis Hamilton. That is the best move of the lot.
and the world's most successful movie stars,
Working on it.
all in one. They were absolutely spectacularly high-profile celebrities in their world. One of the richest Romans we know of was a chariot racing driver from the Hippodromes. Why did the Romans have gladiators? The Romans had a couple of things which kept people happy, so they didn't rebel against the emperor and the other rulers. Bread and circuses. So in Rome, you have the grain dole, the cura annona, the free bread for the citizens coming from North Africa and Egypt. But you also have circuses, the circus, chariot racing, hippodrome and the arena.
General Acacia, there are victories yet still to come.
The Romans had gladiators as part of the entertainment to keep the people happy enough so they wouldn't rebel against the emperor. Next question. How old were gladiators? Gladiators could be any age, fighting in the arena, fighting each other singularly or en masse. You also have the superstar gladiators as well.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Some gladiators could just be recruited in because the games themselves, the particular event, needs people to be victims. Were there female gladiators? There's a debate around this. We certainly have examples of the bikinis worn by female gladiators which have been on display in various museums around the world, and we have depictions in Roman contemporary artwork on painted wall plaster or in mosaics. In my opinion there were, and they were called gladiatorixes. How common they were, I don't know, but there were certainly female gladiators. Could gladiators earn their freedom? Gladiators absolutely could earn their freedom, either by earning enough money through their success fighting in the arena to buy their freedom, or more commonly, fighting a set number of engagements in the arena, after which they would be freed.
You're getting old, Atticus.
When I win in the arena tomorrow, I'm a free man. Roman law. And there's nothing you can do about it.
The exact number of events a gladiator would have to fight to be freed, and almost certainly it changed over time on the whim of the owner or the emperor.
He touched me on the shoulder and I was free.
You knew Marcus Aurelius?
I did not say I knew him. I said he touched me on the shoulder once.
Were gladiators paid to sleep with rich women? You have to remember we're talking about a very gender imbalanced society where in the Roman world women are often very negatively portrayed, often comes down to us today through the prism of Roman literature.
I want to see him from behind.
Why so serious? Not so bad for a night's work.
So this is one of those examples where women are sometimes portrayed in Roman literature, sleeping with gladiators.
You have done all this.
Yes,
You risk too much.
I have much to pay for.
But the reality is we just don't know. Next question. Was gladiator sweat sold? Just a reflection, I think, from contemporary writers about the incredible celebrity status that gladiators had in their own world. So a Roman author might say this happened. The reality, of course, is in actual fact we really don't know. Were gladiators used as bodyguards? Gladiators could be used as bodyguards by their owners or by their sponsors or by the people who are the patrons of their owners. Intriguingly, in times of civil war, gladiators could be recruited into normal military units as well. The year of the Four Emperors in AD 69, when units of gladiators were formed, who by the way didn't perform very well fighting regular Roman military units. During the Marcomannic Wars, during a plague event in the 2nd century AD, gladiators being recruited into the ranks of the regular Roman military because of the casualties from the plague event. Where did gladiators fight? Gladiators fought in the arena. Often in our world we call the arena Colosseums. In actual fact there's only one Colosseum, that's the Flavian Amphitheatre in Rome, which is the biggest arena in the Roman Empire by quite a way actually. The Romans did the same everywhere they went. So you would have an arena in every single major Roman city and town in the Roman world. They were also heavily associated with the Roman military. So nearly every Roman fort had an arena as well. Next question. Did Commodus fight as a gladiator? So Commodus is the son of Marcus Aurelius, becomes the emperor in AD 180, he's assassinated in 193.
Only a famous death will do. What could be more glorious than to challenge the emperor himself in the great arena?
Famously mad and bad.
You would fight me?
Why not? Do you think I'm afraid?
I think you've been afraid all your life.
Betrayed by Joaquin Phoenix, he thought he was Hercules, the demigod. He demanded to fight other people in the arena, often gladiators, and also take part in beast hunts, fighting beasts. Of course, the gladiators he fought, or the beasts he fought in the arena, were drugged. He didn't realise everybody else knew about it, and it made him a laughingstock. But Commodus did fight gladiators in the arena. And keep your eyes peeled because I'm doing a separate show about the bad Roman emperors, and let me tell you, Commodus is front and centre if you want to learn more. Next question. Could you bet on gladiators? Absolutely. There'd be gambling, official and unofficial, legal and illegal, taking place all the time, every day, all around the arena. It's an absolutely normal, everyday part of Roman society. The ultimate get-rich-quick society. Were gladiators sponsored? In the Roman world, it's all about patronage, where you have a patron above and a client below. The owner of the gladiator training school would be the client of somebody above them, the patron, somebody super rich who's helping fund what they're doing. So in that sense, the patron of the owner of the gladiator school would be sponsoring the gladiators. Next question. Was Spartacus a real gladiator? So Spartacus is probably the most famous of all gladiators in our world through popular culture.
That you identify the body or the living person of the slave called Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. How many times have I done that in my career as a historian? But Spartacus actually was a real gladiator who led other gladiators and later slaves to create the core of a force which was ultimately 120,000 strong, which tested the military might of Rome all the way to the wire. It's only when the Romans began to take them seriously did they win. In our world, Spartacus is the most famous gladiator. You'll probably find actually in the Roman world he was right up there as well. Next question. Interesting. Who was the most famous gladiator? Well, I've already name-checked Spartacus. I've earlier name-checked Commodus. They're people who in our world we know so much about through popular culture. If you go back to the Roman world, we can look at things like graffiti or contemporary history where some gladiators are named frequently to look at amazing stories which show that they were super famous in their own world, maybe as much as Spartacus, maybe as much as Commodus. Great example is Flamma. Flamma was a gladiator who in the reign of Hadrian, unbelievably, turned his freedom down 4 times to stay a gladiator. To us, it's Spartacus or Commodus, but there are people like Flamma and others we just don't know the name of who could have been equally or more famous in the Roman world. So, next question. Aha! Was Maximus, Decimus, Meridius a real gladiator? Amazingly, he's based on a real individual.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
So you go back to the Marcomannic Wars, where the Romans were holding back the Germans north of the Danube and occasionally invading north of the Danube themselves. There was a band of brothers, generals, who all later made a name for themselves in the Roman Empire. So Septimius Severus, the first of the Severan emperors, is one. He defeated two other fellow candidates to be the emperor in the year of the five emperors, Clodius Albinus and Pescennius Niger. Well, they were in the band of brothers. But another individual who was also in the band of brothers was a general called Maximianus. And Maximianus actually was probably the most successful of all of these generals fighting for Marcus Aurelius in the Marcomannic Wars. And he is the basis for Maximus in the movie Gladiator. The one big difference, of course, with Hollywood is he didn't become a slave and a gladiator. I really hope that you enjoyed our discussion about Roman gladiators. There is plenty more Roman and other historical content across the whole History Hit network. Go and find it, it's fantastic.